Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content.
Forgive me if I sound nasally or breathy. I am a bit under the weather for recording right now, but I'm trying to power through and record so I can get stuff done before the holidays. But what I want to talk about today, other than me being a little under the weather, is the Browns draft odds, what that realistically means, and what that realistically looks like for the rest of the season. It's going to be a fun topic to talk about. Only 2 games left, so this conversation is getting more and more and more real as each day goes by. We're going to talk about that, but first, let me thank my sponsor, Sleeper. Real quick, just want to let you guys know Sleeper has a new offer here. They're offering a free $20 entry, no deposit required, and also, if you're a first-time user, you also will receive a 100% match on up to $100 when you use the promo code Worst Take. Again, $20 free, no deposit required. Plus, first-time users also receive 100% deposit match up to $100. Join Sleeper. So we are at the point of the season where this conversation matters. I know people have, some folks have been in denial about if we're at that part of the season, but we've been here for a little while and now it's undeniable, right? The Browns have 2 games left in the season, and if they lose both these games, they will at worst be the number 2 pick in the draft. Now, some of you might be wondering, how does that happen? Why is it that the Browns could lose out and be guaranteed the number 2 pick of the draft when you go on a website like Tankathon and it tells you the Browns are going to be the 3rd pick in the draft? Well, allow me to explain. The reason the Browns are going to be, if they lose out, pretty much guaranteed to get the number 2 pick in the draft is this. The Giants and the Las Vegas Raiders play each other. So barring that game having a finish, which is important, right? If it's a tie, then the Browns don't get the 2nd overall pick. But as long as one team wins and one team loses at some point in that game, then one of these teams will have 3 wins. Now, the reason the Browns will jump any of these teams that have 3 wins is because the main tiebreaker for NFL draft order, the first tiebreaker for NFL draft order, is strength of schedule. There are some people under the impression that head-to-head is important here. It's not. Head-to-head only factors in if there is a tie on strength of schedule. So, for example, if the Browns and the Dolphins tied up because they have similar strength of schedule numbers, and let's say the Dolphins' strength of schedule drops to 490 and the Browns is at 490 and there's a tie here, then all of a sudden, the head-to-head matters. Like, for example, there's a definite situation here with Detroit and Miami. If those 2 teams had the same record, then head-to-head would determine who gets the draft selection spot over each other. But the first tiebreaker is strength of schedule. The lowest strength of schedule wins. And as you can notice here, of all the teams in the top 10, the Browns have the lowest strength of schedule. All the teams in the top 5, the Browns by far have the lowest strength of schedule. So it looks like an advantage for the Cleveland Browns that is set to hold as long as they don't win more than 5 games, which they can't win more than 5 games. So for the Browns' purposes, this advantage is set to hold. They will likely have the strength of schedule advantage against most teams that they are going up against, which means if the Browns end up with 5 wins, to say they win out, they will pick the lowest of the 5-win teams. If they end up with 4 wins, they'll win, and they will pick the lowest of all the teams with 4 wins. And if they have 3 wins, they'll pick the lowest of all the teams with 3 wins. Right now, there are 2 teams ahead of the Browns, the Las Vegas Raiders and the Giants. Both these teams play each other this week, 4 o'clock. So if the Browns lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers, you can then watch on the 4 o'clock window the Giants play the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, you might ask yourself, who do you want to win that game between the Las Vegas Raiders and the New York Giants? Now, a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I would have told you that you wanted the Raiders to win that game because the Raiders were less likely to win in week 18 than the Giants were, because the week 18 opponent for the Giants is the Dallas Cowboys. The week 18 opponent for the Raiders is the Kansas City Chiefs. And at the time, the Kansas City Chiefs were still alive in the playoff race, still had Patrick Mahomes. So there could be a scenario where the Raiders are playing the Chiefs and the Chiefs need to win that game and the Raiders aren't going to win that game. That has now flipped. The Chiefs are out the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes got hurt. And their backup Gardner Minshew was hurt. They're down to Chris Oladokun. They put a bunch of guys on IR. There's probably going to be another wave of guys hitting IR this week. The energy around that team feels Cancunish. And they just got beat by the Tennessee Titans. So now, if you're looking at that week 17 matchup between the Raiders and the Giants, you're thinking to yourself, well, you want the Giants to win. Because if the Giants win, then there's a chance that the Raiders could win in week 18, and then the Browns will move up to the number 1 overall selection. And we can look at this here, right? The Giants and the Raiders, if we look at the strength of schedule remaining, the Cleveland Browns still sitting high at 19, playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, who will probably need to win this game to make the playoffs, and the Cincinnati Bengals, who are committed to playing Joe Burrow to the end of the season for whatever reason. They just put up 40-something on the Dolphins, so that offense is rocking and rolling. So that is what the Browns have coming up for the next 2 weeks. The Giants have the 29th week of schedule. They play the Raiders, and then they play the Cowboys. And look, the Giants could beat the Cowboys, right? It wouldn't be crazy. The Cowboys are also pretty much out of playoff contention as well. Well, no, I think they're officially out now. Then the Raiders play the Giants and the Kansas City Chiefs. So just so you guys can see this, the way that this works out is if the Raiders beat the Kansas City Chiefs, but they lose to the Giants and the Giants beat the Raiders, that puts the Browns number 1 in the draft order. If the Raiders win, but the Giants don't, the Giants are still going to be ahead of the Browns because they will have 2 wins. The Browns will have 3 wins. If everybody ends up at 3 wins, the Browns will select here. And that's kind of just the situation, right? That seems, if let's say the Raiders and the Giants both win and they get the 4 wins, and they jump here, the Jets, like, let's see how the Jets could get the number 1 overall pick. If the Browns win a game here, and then the Jets lose out, then the Browns will pick 4th, and the Jets will pick 1st. And let's say Arizona wins a game here because they don't start their starters. The Browns jump to 3rd, and then the Raiders would be the 2nd pick in the draft. The Browns would be the 4th pick in the draft. So we see how things go. But if the Browns lose out in that scenario, the Browns end up with the number 1 overall pick. If you want to know what this looks like as far as percentages are concerned, this is playoffstatus.com. I think they do a really good job with their projection models. This is their projection for what the draft order is likely to look like now. It's been updated after this week. They're predicting the Browns to go 3-14. And if the Browns go 3-14, they're predicting that the Browns will pick number 1, the Giants will pick 2, the Raiders will pick 3. Now, this is what they're predicting. Their motto itself says the Browns have a 23% chance of getting the number 1 overall pick. They have the highest odds to get the number 2 overall pick. And so they're basically saying the Browns have a 63% chance to land in the top 2. The Giants have a pretty high chance to land in the top 2 as well. 50, 60, 70, 73% chance to end up here. The Raiders are a little bit less likely, right? You got 31, 41% chance to end up in the top 2. They're thinking the Raiders are going to be the odd man out here. Either way, the Browns are going to be in a strong position to get one of the 2 top picks in this draft. If the Giants get that number 1 overall selection, who knows what the Giants do with that number 1 overall selection? There is an assumption that the Jets are going to try to get in that market and trade up for the number one overall pick. I don't know if that assumption is going to happen, right? They're not really at the place where I think they have enough trust within the organization to make a move to go all in on quarterback, because like it's different a team selecting a quarterback with the pick that they have versus the Jets like mortgaging the future to go and get a quarterback. Like that's a different level of in love. So maybe a team trades up, maybe a team doesn't. Maybe the Browns get both quarterbacks that they want, or they get to select from either quarterback that they want at number 2. I think if you have to pick from 2, picking behind the Giants isn't the worst thing in the world. It isn't the worst thing in the world. The Raiders almost certainly will take a quarterback, so you're going to have one name taken off the board. I think there is a chance that the Giants just straight up pick somebody. I think there's a real good chance that the Giants just straight up pick somebody. They would be tempted for a trade back, but I don't know if the offer for a trade back is going to be there. We'll see. We'll see what happens with the Jets. The Cardinals just don't feel like they're in that kind of a place to do that. The Titans, I don't think they would make that move. The Commanders would have no reason. Like everybody else doesn't really have a reason. It's only really the Jets that you would have to worry about here. So that is kind of the roll around the draft. We're looking at the odds here. Let's take another look here. Browns 20%, 23% now to get a number 1 overall selection. 40% to get the number 2. You combine those percentages, it's about 63% to land in the top 2. 4% to be number 3, 11% to be number 4, 12% to be number 5, 6% to be number 7, 7% to be number 3. You look at the projected strength of schedule, it means that strength of schedule advantage that they have right now is projected to hold, with the only team coming close to them being maybe the Saints, maybe the Commanders. Dolphins are not really in there, and both these teams, the Saints have 5 wins, the Commanders have 4 wins. I think it's only really the Commanders you would have to worry about losing that strength of schedule advantage to. But even then, you're projected to still maintain that over those guys. So that's where the draft picture is. The Browns are very, very likely, more likely than not, to be selecting in the top 2. If we're talking about the Browns' remaining games here, we could pull it up. Pittsburgh and the Cincinnati Bengals. Do the Browns have a realistic chance to win either of those games? One, they're division games, so you can never say never to a division game. Also, Kevin traditionally has been very strong in division games. It's the last pillar of Stefanskiism that is left standing is his performance in division games. Last year, that held, right? The Browns had 3 wins. 2 of those wins were in division. This year, the Browns have 3 wins. I don't believe any of those wins are in division. So if the Browns do lose out, this will be the first time since I believe they went 0-16 that the Browns would be swept by every team in the division. It has not happened in almost 10 years. So it would be extraordinary for the Browns to lose out if we're looking at it from a historical perspective. If we're looking at it from a perspective of how these teams have played this year, it would not be surprising at all. The Pittsburgh Steelers have been a better football team all year than the Cleveland Browns. The Browns, the last time they played the Steelers, weren't really a threat to Pittsburgh. The Browns are also playing a lot of youth on offense. That is something that Mike Tomlin usually thrives against. The Cincinnati Bengals is a more intriguing game, but I'm going to be honest with you, the Browns are going to do something similar to what they did last year, which is pretty much put themselves in a position to lose that game. And the Bengals are incentivized to win that game because they want to justify keeping Zach Taylor after this year. So I do think there is a strong chance here that the Browns lose out. It would pretty much be, if there was any hope left, it would, I don't even want to say nail in the coffin. It would be the dirt on top of the coffin, right? If he loses out for Kevin Stefanski, that would be the last pillar of Stefanskiism that would fall. But it's certainly possible. And how the Browns could end up with the number 1 or even the number 2 overall pick and what that entails, which is the Browns will be going after quarterback. The reason I think that would be the case, Dante Moore is going to come out. And I think Fernando Mendoza is going to come out. I think that's going to happen. The more and more you hear from Oregon, the more likely it is that Dante Moore is going to declare for the draft. And if Dante Moore declares for the draft, I think that seals it. If the Browns have a top 2 pick, those 2 quarterbacks are coming out. I think they'll select one of them. Will that end up being the right move that changes the franchise? We would all hope so. If the Browns spend big on a quarterback, we would all want that selection to work out. And we know that the Browns have had their best chances at solving these problems when they have actually went out and used a top 5 pick for a quarterback. But if they feel strongly about these quarterbacks, which I think they will be likely to feel strongly about these quarterbacks, they will be in a position if they lose out to get one of them. And I think that's what they will do with their first selection. Now, what will they do with all their other draft picks? It's important to remember they got draft picks. They got free agency. They have a lot of ways to solve a lot of different problems. That gets lost when people only debate the first pick, right? But a lot of ways to solve a lot of different problems. We'll see what happens there. That's going to be Andrew Berry's, reputation there. But we'll see what happens there. But that's what I think is going to happen. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Have a great day. Have a better night. Peace.